Rima. We're just going to pull you off mute. Hi, Nate.
Awesome. Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderfully. What a gorgeous day. Thank you so much for doing this. This is fantastic.
Yeah, looks like a great day to be inside.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, is this an idea to do like a ride outside? But yeah, I don't have an inside bike. I'm not that lucky.
No,
That's amazing.
It's all good. So just for everyone on the live stream, this is Rima Berns McGown. She's the member of provincial parliament for Beaches East York. And she wanted to stop by, say hi to folks. And I thought maybe we could just kind of talk a little bit about some of the work the province is doing right now with the Emergency Operations Center and how we're all coming together to respond to the COVID-19 crisis. So
Absolutely. So I would like, if it's okay, to start by just saying thank you so much to you, Brad, for doing this, to everybody who's participating in whatever way they're participating, whether it's by joining to chat or by donating, by riding alongside you. And I'll obviously also want to just begin by saying an enormous thank you to the folks at McGown. We are so fortunate in the east of Toronto to have this incredible hospital. Over the time of being elected, in the run-up and afterwards, I've had an opportunity to meet a lot of the folks who work at the hospital, and oh my gosh, what a stellar crew of people who care so very deeply for all of us and doing everything they can to keep us safe. So thank you so much.
Well, no, absolutely. I know that means a lot to them. We've had a number of the frontline healthcare workers on the ride, some of them riding, some of them calling in from work at the hospital.
I can't hear you.
Oh. Am I working? Can you hear me?
There you are. Now I can hear you.
Okay, very good. We've had a number of the frontline healthcare workers calling in. A number have joined the ride. We had phone calls last night right from the ER, and just kind of giving everyone a sense of what the situation is at MGH right now and how they're showing up and putting in the hours to keep everybody safe. And I think we've got 400 riders participating in this event, 40 different teams, folks from across Toronto, Ontario, and actually riders from around the world. And that message of a community response and a community hospital, I think, really resonates with folks, which is why we've had such a tremendous amount of support through the event.
That's it. I really think that the hospital is the heart of the East. I think it feels like a beating heart, keeping us all safe and trying to make the most thoughtful decisions always, to make sure that all of us are well cared for. And so it's a real honor to be here and to be able to support them.
So
yeah,
I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about, the province has a huge role to play, obviously, and in our response, our collective response to COVID-19. Obviously, a lot of those decisions are made with the provincial government. And maybe you could just walk folks through who have been on the line. They heard earlier from Chief Pegg at the City of Toronto what that response looks like. And maybe you could just kind of give us some insights into some of the challenges at the province and where they've been able to respond as well.
So yeah, I'm happy to do that. So I think that this has been a really difficult time for everybody, and all governments are trying to figure this out as they go along. And I think that, it's difficult to get all of the pieces in place as quickly as people would like them to. So I think the government is trying to strike a balance between allowing people to continue to have their needs met by having businesses open that can be safely open, while at the same time keeping the curve of this disease from rising as high as it can possibly go. I mean, I think from where I sit as the MPP, I hear a lot of the on the ground stories of where things haven't moved fast enough. So there are still a lot of individuals who are getting N4 eviction notices, even though the government has tried to uh, say that no evictions will be carried through. People are still getting those notices. The premier has said, hey, landlords, uh, work it out with your tenants. But a lot of landlords, unfortunately, aren't doing that. We have small businesses that didn't, 60% of small businesses uh, haven't been captured by the measures that were released by the provincial and federal governments yesterday. Of course, that number is according to the CFIB. And so I think that uh, governments need to go farther than they have, because sitting where I do as the MPP, and I'm sure that this is true for MPPs across the province, I end up hearing a lot of the painful stories where we understand what the government is trying to do, but actually, right now, we're 6 weeks into this, and we don't know when it's going to end. They're going to need to step up, I think, more than they have. And that's true in some public policy senses as well, like testing, and also areas. And one area that I'm very cognizant of the details of, and that's the question of how governments have been dealing with shelters and folks who are homeless across the province. And I'm going to shamelessly use this opportunity to say that it's it can't just be the responsibility of each of the individual cities. They don't have the funding to deal with that properly. So the province really does need to step up more than it has, in terms of both money and logistical help.
Well,
So I think that everybody's trying to do a, a good job, and we certainly support, the measures that have been taken. But we need to go farther, and we need more help for folks. One thing I do think is really awesome is the fact that community gardens are going to be opened up. This is just so important, because a lot of folks, as you know, use those for food. They're important for food security. So it's really wonderful, that the Premier's office was open to listening, to Sustain Ontario and other groups who got together and said, please reconsider this. There's got to be protocols that we can put in place. And so I do think that they're listening. I think all levels of government are listening. They understand that this is a work in progress. So, yeah, we just have to keep working together, and eventually and hopefully sooner than later, we'll actually get these pieces figured out so that the people aren't panicking, and I'm getting fewer panicked phone calls.
well, that's great to hear. I know we are both spending a lot of time on the phone and Zoom calls, and I guess in a strange way, one of the silver linings of all this is just our community's response and community responses across the city and around the province. And I was wondering if there's an inspiring story or scenario that you've heard about, situation, folks coming together, big ways or small ways, but have been able to make a difference and look out for each other in a time of need.
Absolutely. I mean, as I say, people, I feel like I'm a community mama, and people call when things are not going well. So primarily, I tend to hear the terrible stories. But I also have been witness to some incredible acts of kindness and generosity. I've also spoken to small businesses whose landlords are bending over backwards to make this work. I've spoken to individuals whose landlords are bending over backwards to make this work. And I want to really shout out the folks that conquered COVID-19. What an incredible organization of people coming together to do local drives for PPE, to then distribute PPE to frontline folks and the people who need it. And they're really fabulous. I mean, I got a phone call from somebody at Conquer COVID one evening at 7 o'clock, and he's like, okay, I have a whole bunch of masks that I would like to deliver to Michael Guerin. So please tell me, who I should deliver them to. And he just showed up. at Michael Garren with this with boxes of N95s, and told me that that the people there almost wept. They were so grateful. And I know that Conquer COVID has been able to get crucial PPE to frontline folks in other areas who just haven't been able to get it through their workplaces, and they've really been performing these acts that are individual miracles in people's lives, and that's just really, really huge.
That's
And I also just want to say, and I mean, I know that these acts of kindness are out there, and I just want to say to everybody, please just continue to be compassionate, continue to be kind. It'll come back and repay you. That kindness will come back to you. So please keep putting that kindness out there.
That's a wonderful message to end on, Rima. I really appreciate that, and thank you for joining us. I think people in the live stream here really appreciate hearing from you and all the work that you're doing at the province right now. It's challenging for everybody, but we're going to get through this, and thanks for being so thoughtful about it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay.
And take care, everybody. Enjoy the sun, and thanks again for doing this, Brad. This is amazing.
We'll see you soon.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Rima.
Bye.
Awesome. So that was the Rima Berns McGown, our member of provincial parliament in Beaches, East York, giving us the lay of the land at the provincial level. And now I want to segue into our member of federal parliament, our MP, Mr. Nathaniel Erskine-Smith, who is joining us on the call now as well. Nate, how's it going?
Brad, things are good. I'm less busy than you are at the moment.
I don't know if I'm occupied, but I'm not really busy. I'm just kind of sitting here.
You're on hour what now?
I don't know, 18 or 19 maybe. 20, hour 20.
Your mind went to sleep or your legs kept going?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, but the legs are also kind of starting to protest a bit as well.
Yes, starting. I probably started a while ago.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We've got 400 people riding as part of the Crush COVID campaign for Michael Garren Hospital. As I was saying, a lot of folks here in Toronto, the cycling community really stepped up huge. But also in Ontario and across Canada, and we've got folks from around the world who are riding with us today. And I know you can't see, we're on this platform called Zwift, but it simulates riding outside, so you feel the hills, you feel the gradients, you feel the sensations of the road, but you also feel the draft. So the more people around, the easier it is to cruise. So it's been good.
Good. Well, it's great to see so many people involved, and you guys blew your expectations out of the water, which is amazing.
I think that's we've been overwhelmed by the response, but I think we're at about $175,000 right now, coming into the final hours of the 177 coming into the final hours here, and it just speaks to how much folks care about the frontline healthcare workers. And for those who are in a position to give right now, it's a great cause, and you do a lot of work with Michael Garren, I know, and it's just a hospital that has a lot of connection with people in the neighborhood.
Yeah, no question, and they've gone out of their way in the course of this pandemic. They were one of the first hospitals in Ontario to have a COVID assessment center, and then they went when obviously the real challenge we face at the moment is in long-term care facilities, where we're seeing requests from provinces, province of Ontario, province of Quebec, to actually have Canadian force medics come to the aid of some long-term care homes. But we've seen Michael Garren step up, and there are 10 long-term care homes in East End of Toronto that they're getting into and providing the necessary support. So we couldn't be luckier in these tend to happen.
Right. So obviously things have changed quite dramatically on your end.
Every day.
Yeah, probably when we got elected, you didn't think you'd be dealing with a global pandemic. But take me through what the days are like now and how you're working to try and help get us all through this.
Yeah, so it's a strange time in many ways because I am working from home, as are many of us, and we are starting up with a virtual parliament in the next week. I just started with my industry committee 2 days ago, virtually as well. So we're getting back up and running. It feels like it's been nonstop in terms of the flow of information, both ways really. So flow of information from government announcements, prime ministers out there pretty much every day making different announcements, and We've seen major announcements, income supports for individuals, supports for businesses, supports for students, some health supports, obviously, because it's only an economic crisis because of the health crisis. And so getting that information in simple, clear terms out quickly to people has been one of the key roles. And then the other key role, obviously, because these are programs that would ordinarily take months to years to develop, and they're being rolled out in a matter of weeks, and the expenditures are huge. And so making sure that I'm rolling the feedback from constituents back up the ladder to the finance minister, the prime minister's office, so that we see changes. And thankfully, the government, I think, has been responsive. Everything hasn't rolled out perfectly, but where there are gaps, the government has listened and tried to fill those gaps as best as they can.
What is the big challenge? Everybody knows that, typically governments at every level don't necessarily move at lightning speed, and yet this is a crisis that really requires a rapid response. And by all accounts, people would say things haven't come quickly enough, but there is an acknowledgement that, it's quicker than ever before. What are the challenges with trying to establish programs of this size, this scale, this amount of money, and this amount of need, and doing it in such a fashion where we can get the supports of the people who need it right now?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many different challenges. When we looked at income supports as an example, we rolled out, when we were first elected in 2015, we rolled out our signature promise to Canada Child Benefit, which was a $25 billion program overall, and we rolled that out in a matter of, I would say, people were patting themselves on the back for rolling it out by July, and we were elected in October. So there is a significant expenditure, and now we're looking at expenditures that dwarf that and are being rolled out in a matter of weeks. And so honestly, credit to frontline health professionals first and foremost in the course of this pandemic, but I would say, what I've seen at the federal level, a credit to civil servants for making sure those dollars rolled out the door so quickly. We had a huge debate about the emergency response benefit and how it should be structured in order to happen quickly enough. But when you look at it, people were getting dollars in their bank accounts in the first and second week of April. So considering the crisis really came down on us, I would say we're looking at mid-March. That is an incredibly quick time to roll dollars out the door in a significant way. So again, there are still challenges, obviously. And just yesterday, the Prime Minister made an announcement about commercial rent assistance, which is, I think, the critical challenge for small businesses right now in our East End and across the country. And again, that announcement is probably going to have to be tweaked, as the other announcements have had to have been tweaked based on feedback. So that's the lightning speed challenge locally too, right? Is to make sure we quickly take in that information, quickly transfer that information to the decision makers that are ultimately responsible, and making sure that we see those changes. And I haven't seen all the changes that I've wanted to see, frankly, but I've seen significant changes, which is the government has been responsive overall, I would say.
When we look at federal and provincial politics, I think a lot of people get turned off with the partisan bickering, the lack of cooperation, the inability to work together, and yet in this time of crisis, for the most part, we're seeing unprecedented cooperation, commitment, dedication to get things done. What has that been like during this crisis for you versus your previous 5 years as an MP?
Well, it's funny you say that. I've made a point in the course of the last 5 years of reaching out to colleagues from other parties and trying to work cooperatively, and I've done so in the last Parliament, certainly with Conservatives and NDP colleagues on tech issues and platform government issues and privacy issues, and worked with NDP and Green colleagues on animal welfare issues and drug policy issues. So it's been nice to see in the course of this pandemic, to the extent there's been anything nice to see, it has been nice to see parties and politicians cooperate in the public interest. And if you told me a year ago that Chrystia Freeland and Doug Ford would be in regular touch and had a positive, collaborative working relationship, I would have been extremely skeptical, and yet here we are. And I think a credit to provincial governments of Conservative stripes, a credit, I think, to our government for working alongside those provincial governments. And frankly, I mean, we've seen, speaking municipally as you are and federally as I am, we've had a very strong relationship with Mayor Tory and your office and councillors' offices and city council overall. But it has been really positive to have a strong working relationship with all three levels of government.
So the last thing I want to end on was the same question I asked Rima is, we are seeing our community and communities across Toronto come together in ways that I think surpass everyone's expectations. Everyone's aware of the challenges that are in front of us, and they're doing everything they can to come together while staying apart and provide a response. Is there a story or an instance that's kind of inspired you, or you said, wow, that was really thoughtful, those folks are really making a difference, really helping out, something that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the fact that McGown is extending themselves into our community to support our seniors. I think that can't be said enough, and that can't be appreciated enough. I would also say, though, there are some smaller examples of, I had a woman reach out, Allie, who started this strong food coalition of delivering food to folks in the community. They were looking for space, and so immediately we reached out to one of our local regions, Branch 11, and said, I don't know, you guys aren't using the space, would you be able to make it available? And honestly, it was a matter of minutes, and they were, of course we will, and we're here to help, and how can we help? And now Allie and her crew are set up there with a physical space to help out others in our community. And that's just one of so many examples of people redirecting their attention, redirecting their resources, redirecting their energies to support our neighborhood, support our community in this crisis. I just went through a list of organizations bringing them to Canada Summer Jobs, and so many of these organizations have pivoted to support our community in the course of the pandemic. And we are incredibly lucky in East End to have McGown, but we are incredibly lucky in East End to have so many organizations step up.
That's great. Okay, Nate, well, we can leave it there. I want to thank you for stopping by, saying hi to folks. It's always great to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, and thank you for all your leadership on this, and thank you to everyone. I see Diana's name, but I don't see her up on the bike. It's all black at the moment, but I know she's still going hard. So thank you to all of you for everything you've done, raising money for our local hospital. I really, really appreciate it.
Beautiful. Okay, we'll see you soon. Stay well.
Take care.
Ready. That's great. For me, it's been really interesting to, being new to politics myself, just see those interactions with our counterparts. I think everybody expects us to work together when you're elected, and sometimes that's challenging. But in moments like this, everyone's coming together. There's a lot of cooperation, and folks are actually able to get things done. So that's very positive. So I am going to pause here for a bit. We have 1:15, 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock we'll be back, and I'm going to share one of those stories of someone in the community stepping up and providing a response in this challenging time, redirecting resources, and making a difference here in the community. So stay tuned, 2 o'clock, and then we got programming right to the end. Very good.